The Town of Vesuvius Committee of the Whole meeting, Monday, December the 7th, 2020, 9 a.m. in council chambers. So we need a resolution to exclude the public. Then in accordance with Ministerial Order 192, the Town of Vesuvius Committee of the Whole meeting be closed to the public due to the inability to meet physical distancing recommendations made under the Public Health Act in council chambers located at 8707 Main Street. And that to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability, the Town of Vesuvius Committee of the Whole meetings will be recorded, live streamed, and published on the town's website. May I have a thank you, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor? Thank you. Introduction of late items. Is there anything to add? No. Thank you. Then we need a motion, please, that the Committee of the Whole agenda of December the 7th be approved as printed. Thank you, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you. And we have a delegation today, and that would be on the grants, organics, carts, and containers. And this is by Cameron Baum, who is the RDOS Solid Waste Management Coordinator and knows everything there is to know about garbage and recycling. So welcome, Cameron.
Thank you. Just making sure you can hear me. I had to reset my my sound.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for the humbling introduction. I certainly don't know everything, but today I'd like to speak about partnership with the Town of Vesuvius and the potential to work with the RDOS and potentially the Town of Oliver in terms of finding grant funding for the advancement of organics collection. Is it possible for me to share the screen?
Yes, just give me 1 second, Cameron, and I'll make that possible.
Thank you much.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Thanks, Cameron. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, and thank you again for having me today. So I am Cameron Bond. I work for the Regional District of Okanagan Snow Clean and Solid Waste. We've been working with several projects I'll just go through right now. So the main purpose of today's presentation is to discuss a new grant through the province of British Columbia. It's $25.7 million total that the province has made available for local governments and First Nations across British Columbia. They'll cover up to 2/3 of the cost of different programs. One program that's looking at is new capital projects for food waste composting. So that would be like a new compost site or some similar site that would deal with food waste. And they'll supply 2/3 capital funding for those projects. As well, they've added a new program, which is, well, I've never seen this before, but they're looking at funding new residential food waste collection programs. And in that, they're willing to supply 2/3 funding for carts, and that would be the carts that residents place out at the curb for pickup of food waste. Kitchen catchers, which is small kitchen catchers that are provided to residents to help advise them on how to move food waste to the carts. And then a contracted education program, and that would cover off the cost to launch the program and establish the program in your community. So what we're looking at right now is the Oliver landfill. So the Oliver landfill is just currently in the design phase of a new plan for the entire landfill. So they're looking at the entire, what they would calling a master plan. That would be a design, operation, and closure plan, plus the compost site, plus any other infrastructure around the Oliver landfill. And what we've been looking at, and we've got grant funding for, is to design a food waste compost site for only residential food waste. So that must be collected from people's homes and yard waste, brought to the Oliver landfill. And the capacity we're looking to design it for would include the Town of Vesuvius electoral area A, as well as Oliver and the electoral area C and the Vesuvius Indian Band. So the purpose there is to have a site available for residential food waste to be brought to and composted at one location for all that region in the south of the RDOS. So we need to complete that grant by March 2022, and by doing that, we can then have that available for use for those communities. The new grant that we're looking at would allow us to supply standardized carts for all of the residents within these service areas if we apply for it. It would also allow us to provide the waste collection buckets and then the education for the program launch. And we would have, if we applied for the grant, the stipulation would be that we would complete that rollout of that new program by March 2024. So there's some time left before we would have to complete those grant obligations. So what we see, the best thing to look at is collaboration. We think we can lower costs that way. So we're looking at collaboration with the town of Oliver, the town of Vesuvius, and the Vesuvius Indian Band. As well, the District of Summerland is completing their own compost site under a similar grant. It'll have to be done March 2022 as well. So they're looking at applying for this grant as well. So what we feel is that if we have collaboration in the grant application, we have collaboration after the fact in terms of procurement, we can save the most amount of money for everyone. So what we're looking at, if Vesuvius decides to proceed, as Vesuvius does not currently supply food waste carts or yard waste carts to their local community, then we would consider that if Vesuvius would like to purchase those carts and own them, you'd only be paying 1/3 of the cost. Then we'd recommend that you apply for the grant specifically for those. That's the main reason for that is the grant obligation would require that the person that holds the grant has to ensure that those carts are in use until 2034. By you applying for the grant, that means that you would sign up for that obligation directly with the province of British Columbia. Otherwise, we would have to set up some form of contract that would require that the town of Vesuvius hold on to those carts until 2034. So we prefer that you guys to work directly with the province on any capital. But where we do see some potential for synergies for the grant application is for the application for the education side. That would be a one-time only obligation. We feel that we could work together on hiring a contractor, supplying the kitchen catchers, and then we could have a similar program. If not, if the town of Vesuvius would like to apply for a portion of the grant, that also makes sense. And we would then work together and collaborate in terms of the hiring of the contractors and purchasing of equipment or purchasing of anything else that we need to purchase to the grant. So we'd like to just make sure that we or if we hire one contractor, the cost will go down per unit, per home that we're servicing. So we just see that as working together makes the most amount of sense. So when we're saying that we just want you guys to be aware, the grant does require the council to be aware there is costs engaged. You will be required to cover the 1/3 portion or any portion over the grant that you receive. So if they give you partial grant funding, you have to cover the remaining costs, as well if any money expended after 2024 in March would not be covered as well. But to be clear, the grant is not a commitment for borrowing or financing. It's just basically saying that if you do proceed, this is a commitment to endorse the project. If for some reason the project doesn't proceed, that's not an obligation. We would just not have those funds spent, and so we wouldn't be recovering the 2/3 from the province of BC. Solid Waste Management Plan is very clear on this. We would be able to apply for any long-term financing over 5 years without having to go back to public assent. Solid Waste Management Plan allows for us to proceed on these kind of projects in the plan, and by using that as a tool to gain public assent and proceed on those projects. And next year, we've already budgeted through the regional district to start consultation on these projects. Every 10 years, we do a solid waste management planning exercise. So we'll be coming to the town of Vesuvius to potentially work with the town on some in-kind help to make sure that we understand the Vesuvius projects and the Vesuvius landfill in terms of that. But as we work towards looking at solid waste as a whole, we'll be looking at the organics collection, infrastructure, working with curbside customers to educate them on what kind of options they have in 2021 so that we can proceed on purchasing that equipment and making sure everything's ready for 2022 when the program would be launched. So let's add one thing. The one thing that we are doing that I didn't include in my presentation is we're recommending that communities sign letters of support. So if the town of Vesuvius is applying for the grant themselves in partnership with the RDOS, like with full transparency on how we apply, then we would just ensure that there's a letter of support from the town of Vesuvius for the RDOS. And we've gained board approval to provide letters of support for any grant application to the town of Vesuvius already. So we can have through the board the ability to provide letters of support for your grant application if you proceed on that grant. and that was completed at our last board meeting. So any questions, please?
Thank you very much, Cameron. So I heard it at the board level the other day too, so this helps to hear it again. The letters of the grant letters need to be in by and have to be submitted by what date? Is it March 2021?
No, the grant itself needs to be applied for by January 12th, 2022. So what we're looking at right now is working with the town of Vesuvius. I've already spoken to staff a couple of times.
Okay.
But now we need, if the council approves this and it moves forward, we then get down to the nitty gritty and start filling in the grant application or applications and working together on that through a ton of Vesuvius staff. And we would then focus in on getting that in for the 12th of January.
Great. But, so 2022 though, so we've got a year.
For the grant application?
Yeah.
No, it would be January 2021.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I wrote down 22. All right. That's why I
was
thought there was
explaining
there was a bit of a rush
Yeah.
to get this done, right?
There is a rush, yeah.
Yeah.
So the town of Oliver, it's confusing because we have so many grants in play from the same body. The
Yes.
town of Oliver, so the Oliver landfill received a grant from a similar organization. It's actually the same provincial group that we're speaking with on this grant, and that grant has been awarded already to the Oliver landfill, and we're now applying that grant for design work and construction of a new compost site. That's the 2022 number.
Okay.
The 2024 number is the completion of the grant and the application date that everything has to be submitted by. Actually, to be honest, I believe the letters of support can come in slightly later. Council resolutions, as they recognize that there could be issues with the holidays, they allow another 2-week extension past the 12th of January to get
Okay.
those council resolutions in. In my opinion, if we're able to work and get that in during the application phase for January 12th, that would probably be the simplest. So we'll be presenting letters as soon as you guys make a decision on how you're going to proceed, and we'll make sure that RDOS has letters of support to you right away for your grant application if that's how you proceed.
Thank you very much. Now, there's a couple of questions. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Makarov. Cameron, just a question in regards to which landfill you decided. How would you decide between Oliver or Soyuz or Penticton? It seems to me like Oliver, when I drive up there, seems to be quite put in a small little valley. So do they have more room, or would that be the reason?
Well, we've been speaking to the town of Vesuvius for a long time, so for about maybe 10 years on this project. And as we move forward, some of the staff prior to this iteration of staff that you guys currently have indicated that the Oliver landfill would probably be preferable to them, mainly because of odor issues in and around the Vesuvius landfill. You guys have the desert center, you have homes. So the idea was that the Oliver landfill being further from all of those homes, we're surrounded by vineyards. There isn't any big tasting rooms near us within 3 or 4 kilometers. That the odor potential there was actually better. If we made a small odor, it would be less impactful than around the Vesuvius landfill. So that's how we fell on the Vesuvius area. As well, the Vesuvius landfill has an existing Churn-Windrow site. We did do a feasibility study on that, and that information is available to the town of Vesuvius. We did see that it could be very successful for accepting residential food waste, but the potential for odor was higher because of the desert center and because of the homes that were closer to the Vesuvius landfill and to the Oliver landfill. We also had to apply for the Oliver area because we don't have a compost site there yet. So we felt we could design it from scratch and allow it to include food waste to minimize the odor at that site. And because we're constructing it from scratch, that was the best way to apply to the regional district for that grant. And we did obtain permission through the town of Vesuvius Council to proceed, and you guys did provide a letter of support for our application for the Oliver landfill to proceed for that food waste residential food waste compost site.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Hi, Cameron. So I might be a little bit premature, but I'm curious about a couple of things. When are you going to get to a point where we can see some costs about how this is going to cost the residents in our community and that? And secondly, if you could just clarify exactly what it is that you want from us today, or do we defer this to the next meeting until we get a report? Or I'm not exactly clear what you want from us today.
I think those are excellent questions. In terms of costs, this grant isn't coming in at the timeline we would like. We would have a better idea of costs when we go to public consultation next spring. In terms of the Oliver landfill, we're still in the design phase, so we haven't determined the final tipping fee that would be required for us to receive residential food waste. So we don't have all that information. We only have a grant deadline that is January of next year, which is less than, just over a month away. So when we look at what we need to do, our grant application will be based on discussions with the town of Vesuvius in terms of what kind of infrastructure makes sense to apply for. Now, that might not be what we use, to be honest. We don't know what we're going to do. But what we'll do is I've already got pricing from manufacturers in terms of carts based on the volumes that we expect to bring into the communities. I've got pricing for kitchen catchers, and I've been working with a few different groups in terms of estimating the cost for contracted education services. So with that information, we believe we have enough information to create a budget and then a grant application to apply based on what we think would be probably the more expensive, the Cadillac version of a food waste collections program, based on probably higher cost than average, based on the best carts, the best kitchen catchers, and the best education program. If we're able to receive those funds, then we have the money in hand, and then we can proceed to public consultation next year, and then by then we'll have the design phase done for the Oliver landfill, and we'll actually have those costs. And then at public consultation, we'll be able to discuss the types of carts, type of education program, and then what the cost would be for the Oliver landfill. So you can make the final decision. I told the board this is putting the cart ahead of the horse, and I believe it is. Preferably, we would like to have everything nailed down so you can make a decision today on what's going on. Right now, if we don't apply for the grant, the money's gone. The date is January 12th, 2021. So if we don't have something in place to present to the province, they can't supply that 2/3 funding. So what I'm trying to do today is get some permission from council to proceed by working with your staff. I understand there's at least one more meeting this year and one early meeting in January. So there would be time for a CS staff to come back and present to council more information in terms of our grant application. But that wouldn't bind the actual application of the funds. It wouldn't bind like how the town of Vesuvius proceeds. But what it would do is to kind of give us the money in hand if we do get the grant funding to then apply that to a program as it's going to roll out through public consultation and through council's decisions in terms of how that money will be allocated.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, go ahead.
So just for clarity, you're looking for a letter of support today.
Well, I think what needs to be discussed at the council level is, do you want to apply for your own grants? Would you be looking at getting new carts in there? And those are the kind of questions that council will have to determine. From a letter of support, yes, we would like a letter of support for our application through the RDOS. Whether we're going to be applying for the grant with the town of Vesuvius through one grant. We kind of raised one of the problems today with that in terms of the capital of the carts. But if you're not thinking of purchasing carts, then what we could look at is then the working together on the education programming and having then one grant for that application, or having the town of Vesuvius apply for a separate grant. Today, I'm basically introducing the topic and just trying to explain how the grant's going to proceed. In terms of how you guys proceed, it would be up to the council and to your staff to determine if you're going to apply for the grant yourself. With us working together, certainly we'll be sharing information and we can make that happen, or whether we apply for one grant together, or whether it's a mix of both, where we apply for some portions and the town of Vesuvius applies for some portions. That hasn't been determined, and that's why I have to bring this forward to council today, so you guys can have that discussion and staff and CAO can look at that to determine the best actions for the town of Vesuvius.
Thank you. Go ahead. Did you have something else? Yeah.
Just a question for our CAO. How do we proceed with this? This is a major project, and I feel a little uncomfortable debating it today. Are we going to look at it at the next meeting
That would make sense.
with a little bit more information? I mean,
Yeah, Your Worship, the idea today was to hear about the program from Mr. Vaughn. learn a little bit more, determine where they're at. I think you've heard that a lot of this stuff is in its infancy still. There's some unknowns. My expectation would be that Mr. Bronstein would try to bring a report together for the next council meeting that would detail a grant application. Interesting that if we get the grant doesn't mean you necessarily have to spend the funds. We need to know more about the program, its implications for revenues at the Osoyoos landfill that we currently receive as well. So, you know, as we're all learning more and more every day, solid waste disposal is big business.
Thank
But you
you.
do need a report, yes.
So
Thank you.
would you like to make that motion then, Councillor Rhodes, that we ask the CAO and the operations manager for
Yes,
report?
I'd like to make that motion, but we'll have to do some wordsmithing.
that they come back with a report for us with the various options at the next meeting on the 21st? Does that make sense?
Is that achievable? or-
Yes. He's got his tie on today. It must be doable.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a big picture question. Trying to bring a report back to you guys by next council meeting on 21st may not be achievable. There are so many different factors at play that, again, I'm not sure exactly how this is going to unfold and how much costs are going to be associated with this. It depends on the options in which the town decides to go with. Do we go with a full cart program to then bring us to that next level of automation? Do we look at, not providing kitchen catchers and only provide some sort of waste receptacle? I don't know the impacts to our waste collection contractor yet. I know Cameron's been having those discussions with Waste Connections, but that information hasn't been really brought forward yet, and it's been trying to be done regionally to give us the best value for our dollar. As Cameron has so nicely put it, this is the cart way before the horse. So going after grant funding, I personally don't have enough information in order to present anything to council of any sort of substantialness. I can bring back a report in 2 weeks. You're going to have to understand that it's going to be very high-end, very overarching. Giving you details is going to be not impossible.
Good. Well, I would appreciate that. Quite frankly, I think that's important that we have something before we go to Christmas break, because if we're going to do a grant ourselves or with the RDOS, it has to be done quickly. So I'd appreciate just a kind of a recommendation from you, if that was what you could include in your report the next time, which says, I think, yeah, that we
Yeah.
should, and if we apply, I think we need to apply for the grant, whatever way we can do it. We can then decide after, how do we deal with that? But I think it's important to apply for the
The
grant.
problem with that, Your Worship, is the fact that if we apply for a grant, I'm not sure how much funding we are going to need in order to roll this out.
Yeah.
There are too many factors at play, and as I stated in regards to, what does this look like? If we go to a full cart system, this could be a multi-million-dollar project. If all we want to do is provide every resident a kitchen catcher and tell them to figure it out the rest themselves, all of a sudden this turns into a $500,000 project. Again, I don't know what council's appetite is in regards to solid waste. I don't know what your appetite is in going to full automation with cart collection. I don't even know if you guys are even amenable to even looking at organic waste collection. Is that something council wants to engage the community with? So again, there's a lot of factors here that I don't have the answers to, and me providing you with a fictitious number, I have concerns with that.
And we totally understand that money is not something that you can nail down right now. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. So we're about halfway through crafting a resolution right now. But I would like to throw my support behind Mayor McCordoff's comments about it. I think we need to take the first step at our next meeting because of the time sensitivity of it and the possibility of missing an opportunity. I don't know how you're going to do that, and I understand totally that it'll be a high-end report, but we've got to start somewhere because it's a program that could possibly work out for us in a very positive way. And I also like to mention to Cameron, I'm sure he's aware of it,
Is Brian on something?
CART programs in Asuyas are highly controversial. We don't have anything close to solidarity on council, and we need to work through that program. Recently, we went through that process. Actually, it was about 2 years ago. It took us a full year to get through debate. Just a highly, highly controversial thing in Asuyas right now, and I think that would be supported by everybody that's here and almost every resident in this community. I don't know how we even got to where we are with the CART program that we are. It was just a real challenge over a long period of time, so.
Cameron, did you have a question or a comment? Did you have your hand up? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I can just speak to our commitments at the RDUS at this point, as the board has directed us to apply for the grant. So what I've done is I've got pricing in from 4 different contractors to supply carts, 4 different contractors to supply kitchen catchers. So we have the price per unit. I've also committed to providing education contractors and providing those costs as a breakout, sort of looking at education programming and advertising in terms of going to the people's homes and dropping off the bins and providing education at the household as well. So those are the kind of activities that I've been doing already as part of my job. I'll be very happy to share that with Jared to discuss in terms of what that might look like for the town of Asuyas, as I've kind of rolled in the town of Asuyas into my greater program, just because we have the same media, we have very similar issues. The reason that this grant to me seems appealing is that we have time to sort out many of the questions, because we don't have to implement the program until March 2024, which is several years. The RDUS is bringing forward, I don't know the budget, but estimated around $100,000 worth of consultation next year in terms of the solid waste management plan. So rolling in that discussion in terms of the CART-based programs is something we need to discuss. It is going to be a priority to discuss carts again. I know the public might be sick of it, but it is something to consider for those areas. There's lots of other issues, including organics, many other sort of solid waste issues we'll be discussing as well. So this next year will be very busy for councils and for the board in terms of solid waste because of this program. So I'm about to get kicked out of this room too. So if there's some noise, that's just me chewing people out of the room. So
no problem.
But just to get out, I want to make sure council is well informed. I need to make sure your CEO and Jared are very well informed as well,
right?
Because you are making a commitment. So I just want to make sure that we make sure that we have that information there. So any information I can provide today, I'll make sure that that's sent off today to your staff and CAO.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll just deal with things as we can. I mean, we can't solve all the world's problems, but we'll try with this one. Councillor King, did you have a quick question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess it's really the cart before the horse. Does this imply if we supported this grant forward, we're locked in, or can we back out after?
From my reading of the grant, and I would ask that your staff and CAO look at it as well. My understanding is there is no lock-in. There is a commitment that you do feel as council that food waste collection is important. I think that's been stated a number of times by council, but you'd have to reaffirm that. What the actual expenditure of funds would be, the final expenditure, the way a grant works is if you spend the money, then you can apply back to the 2/3 coverage of that funding that's covered. So if you don't spend the money, then you don't apply for that money back. Right now, the grant would cover 2/3 funding for your carts and your kitchen catchers and your program. If you guys are going to proceed, it may not be a Delaware landfill. Fair enough. You guys have your own landfill and could apply your own program there. That's not part of this grant. You could collect it a different way than carts. There are ways to collect it, like using people supply their own garbage cans. That's possible, yeah. And then you don't have to supply kitchen catchers if you don't want to. And the education program could be looked at. When we look at rollout of these programs across BC, in general, the local governments decide to supply a cart for the collection of the materials. They generally supply a kitchen catcher, and they do provide an education program to inform people on how the new collection program works.
Yeah, no,
So,
I understand that. I just go back to Councillor Rhodes' comment, the cart before the horse. And to me, this implies we're definitely going ahead. We haven't even taken it out to the public or had any discussion. So I really have concerns about applying for this grant. But I do like the idea of money coming to town, so it's gonna be an interesting conversation, and I support something
Um,
that report from them.
And Your Worship, just to be
Yeah.
clear, like for the last 10 years, the solid waste management plan is through public consultation that was done almost a decade ago. We've seen strong support from the community for food waste collection. Just been trying to find the sites and figure out the methods. So this isn't brand new to any area, including the CUS area, but it is now the rubber hitting the road, and these kind of decisions are pushing us towards that direction. So I do understand that this is a commitment for council to make, and you need the best information possible.
And thank you very much, Cameron, for providing that information for us all. And I definitely see this as something that we have to do at some point. So we might as well look at all the options now. And if there's an opportunity to apply for a grant, either the town of Vesuvius or with the RDOS, I think we need to move forward on that. So we appreciate your expertise in this, and I'm sure the CAO and the operations manager will be contacting you as needed. So thank you very much, Cameron.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Okay, so do we have that motion?
Yes,
Mrs. Hilson, do we
we-
have that?
we have a moved, thank you.
Okay, thank
We
you.
didn't have a
So
seconder.
it's moved and seconded that we have something brought back for the next meeting.
Yes, the
Yes.
motion would read that council directs staff to bring a report to the next council meeting on the purchase of curbside collection carts, food waste kitchen catchers, and contracted education programs for the rollout of a residential food waste collection program for the grant through the Clean BC Organic Infrastructure and Collection Program.
Is that okay, Councillor?
You got
Okay.
it all.
So, thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. That looks like it's carried by everyone. Thank you very much. Okay. Next. Legion Beach and road improvements. 89th and 62nd. Mr. Brownstein.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council has a report before them in regards to the realignment of 89th at 62nd, as well as improvements to Legion Beach. This is basically an informational the council as to what staff has been looking at 89th and 62nd. Trying to give you guys a sense of what we envision there, as well as the approximate costs and associated with that vision. As you can tell in the report, and we were looking at an overall budget of $3.428 million to complete these works, as shown in your package. That's a lot of money, hence the tie.
Yes, it is. It's scary.
So I guess the question before council is this something you're interested in? Is this something that you feel is a benefit to the community? I mean, this is a multi-year project. It's not something we would try to do next year. It would be done over a couple of years. But there are significant financial impacts in regards to this project. We'd be looking at basically pulling forward some capital programs into further years out in order to fund this project. So again, this was brought forward to you guys as just an FYI and to ask questions. And
Absolutely. I'm sure everybody has questions. Councillor
I
King.
think design, the pictures drawn, I think looks actually, it would be a major improvement. The real question is, how many spaces do we actually gain? I mean, I see you put a lot of green in there, but do we really gain any parking spaces? I know the in and out would be a benefit.
I
Three.
believe, Councillor King, we double the amount of available spaces within the parking area.
And I guess this project would only go forward subject to some outside funding.
That is correct. So we've applied for the tourism grant of $1 million. So that's full grant expectations. Should we be successful, then we look at moving this project forward.
And I see with your options, one would be just start with your option 2 there. Would that make sense, or would that interfere with kind of the big project?
The washroom facility is a standalone. It wouldn't impact construction of the road realignment or the parking lot. However, there are some connectivity aspects to the full design in regards to the washroom. The washroom could go ahead and you could postpone the rest until further dates.
The design, that washroom was obviously in the design.
Yes, that is correct.
I presume you'd have to take out the
Yes.
equipment, so it could fit, it wouldn't interfere with anything else.
No.
Okay, Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Well, I'm really impressed. I like the project. I think it would be a very positive thing in our community. There's a safety aspect with redesigning that intersection. All of those things are very appealing to me, but I have a big but in there. I just can't get past the timing of it right now. I'm trying to be very sensible in where we're going with the pandemic and the economics that are going to be a serious pitfall, I'm sure, for everybody in Canada. And I just keep going over and over in my mind that this might be a time for fiscal restraint right now, to hold back on some of these projects until we know exactly how the pandemic economics, not the health aspect, but the final fallout of the economics in Canada and how that's going to affect our community and that kind of thing. And I'm going to say again, I really like the project. This is not about the project, it's about the timing and our commitment to fiscal restraint right now with some of these projects. I understand being shovel ready and the grant opportunities that come and all of that, but at the end of the day, this will cost our community something, maybe multiples of millions of dollars. I mean, we don't really know that part of it right now. But I would have a hard time really supporting this right now. Perhaps in a year when we have the numbers and how the pandemic is going to affect us financially, we could move forward with this. And then I'm conflicted with the fact that we need to have a washroom down there. And somehow or another, we have a commitment to our community that we kind of deferred from the other project, and we need to move forward with that. So I'm not really clear about where to go, but my feeling is very strong right now that fiscal restraint is a very real thing that we have to deal with right now. So those are my comments. I love the project. I just don't think this is the right time for it. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey, would you like to have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Rhodes' comment. It looks really nice, but I don't know where it fits in with the scheme of other proposed projects. So, for example, we funded a design phase for Main Street from the Coppers down to the bridge. Where does that fit in? Is that deferred in favor of this? What's the proposal? How do things align and mesh? What's the overall picture? This comes singular, stands alone, but it really is, in the end, it doesn't. Councillor Rhodes mentioned, there's going to be a cost. How do we fund? Which projects do we fund? Do we fund them all? There's not enough information.
Good, thank you. You're okay? So my concerns are, when I looked at this, number one, I love the picture, but anybody driving in there to park has to back in.
That is correct, Your Worship.
And I thought, isn't that interesting, because people don't back into places here, so that would take some
Education.
some education, wouldn't it? And I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't back into places. However, I guess I'd have to learn if I was going to go down there. The other, and I really like it, Mr. Brownstein, I like the fact that is this safety issue is the biggest for me. People coming down 62nd have a difficult time stopping and peering around to see what's coming. And so I think that, and we've had lots of people from the community tell us that they're concerned about the speeding along there. I'm thinking people coming down 62nd may speed along there anyway. However, we need to do something to bumps or something to not let that happen. So I do understand that, and I drive that road every day, so I totally get the safety issue. My thinking is that one of the big issues that we've had for a while down there was a bathroom. And we have RMI funding, and to me, that would probably, because we haven't used it for other things this year, there's some things that have been canceled, that we could use the RMI funding to do the bathroom, and we could do that anytime. I mean, I'm not trying to say right away, but that could be done right away, because I'm assuming you're taking down that building that had the old pump house. So is that sort of where the bathroom was planning to go, in that area?
No, Your Worship, be further south.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think that's an important thing to do, having the bathroom there. I think the safety issue needs to be looked at, but I kind of have to agree that this is a ton of money that, and I'm not quite sure whether this, in my mind, is this issue more important than some of the other things, that we have to be really careful of how we spend our money in the town. And I think we need to sort of look at the priority of what is really important in the town and what things are. I'm assuming that you think this is a higher priority than other things. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have given us this option. Am I correct?
So, Your Worship, the reason why this one came to the table in the forefront of other projects is the potential for grant funding to complete this project. There's $1 million out there that we've applied for already. Should we be successful, that's 1/3 funding already paid for by upper levels of government, and that is the only reason this project is coming to the forefront. Is it met the criteria of that grant program? We didn't have any other projects that fell within the requirements of that grant funding, and we felt this one would solve a lot of concerns within the community, as well as provide the community with greater facilities. So that is the reason why this project is coming forward. It's not because I feel it's a more important project. It was just because of the opportunity to find additional funding through other sources.
And I totally agree. There's an application for a grant that we can get for something. Absolutely, we should be looking at that. So thank you. Did you have something to add, Mr. Chabot?
No, Your Worship, just I guess to comment on the concerns about fiscal restraint and timing for this. Just to point out and highlight to Council that the province made the tourism-dependent community funds available to 33 communities in the province, specifically to create employment, investment, jobs, to try to build out the tourism offering, to build out opportunities for people to recreate outdoors, socially distanced. So it may seem like poor timing, but governments often want to spend money in times of recession or uncertainty to support the economy and local communities, and that's what we were doing. This is a lot of money. I think this community could find a way to pull this off, phased over a number of years, as Mr. Bronstein has suggested. There's a number of funding sources already available that can be directed towards this. And yeah, he's absolutely right. This isn't the #1 priority, but it's an important opportunity, I think, to create another destination beachfront for our community and spread out the tourism load.
Okay.
Can I get one last question? If you could just reverse those parking stalls, you wouldn't lose any parking.
Yes, we could pull them in forward so that they're yeah. The reason why we went with the back end is that's the new age thinking in regards to parking lots, is you back in because we feel it's safer.
Yeah, there doesn't look like any other way you could do it. Yeah, hang on, I've got Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, then Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Kordoff. I'm curious if the construction of the washroom facility that you've costed at $450,000, that seems like a pretty deluxe, just comparing it with some of the other ones that we've done. Is there a scaled down version of that, and could this grant opportunity be used for funding some of that?
Of course, there's always a scaled-down version, Councillor Rhodes. Again, the understanding I have is that the community wanted a Four Seasons washroom. They wanted the ability to use this thing year-round, so then your costs go up. As this is a beach area, change rooms are definitely viewed as a great option for people using the area. As for whether or not we could use this grant funding, I guess it would depend on the way the grant was written. I don't see an issue with it. However, again, I don't know if we have to spend the whole $1 million if we can go with partial funding and not use the rest. I guess I'd have to get that clarified.
Okay, Councillor,
I'm fine, it's basically the same question.
oh, okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Harvey?
It's great to take advantage of grant funding opportunities, but I have a great deal of difficulty setting our priorities on the basis of these grants, as opposed to what's our vision for our community and what's our priority. That's all.
And I totally understand everybody's concerns about this. I personally think we apply for the grant. If we get some of it, we then look at the safety issues, the washroom issues down there, and parking. And I think that basically that changing the roads down there and the way the traffic flows is key. I think that's really an important thing. So I would certainly be in favor of applying for this. I don't suppose we have to do everything all at once, and if we get some money, we then can look at what can be done. We may not get the full amount of the grant. If we get a grant at all, can we then come back and look and see how to spend that efficiently? Does that work, or does it
Yeah,
have to
Worship.
be this whole project? Otherwise, we don't
No,
get the grant
the
at
grant
all.
application did show phasing in regards to this project, so there is opportunity to phase certain aspects. I do have to make council aware, though, in order to realign 62nd and 89th, or to put in the parking, the 69th realignment has to go ahead. So that's
Yeah.
the biggest cost is right there.
Yeah, I understand. And I was concerned, and I asked Mr. Brownstein, I said, if people are coming along from town and going up 62nd, to me, that's an issue because you then have to turn left up there and you could be stopped. But he says that the level of the land is going to be changed too. So it looked to me, when I looked at the pictures, like it was perfectly doable. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you again, Mayor McCullough. So I'm not sure whether you got the clarity that you really want. If you're kind of looking for opinions going around the table, I would like to see us apply for that grant. But option number 2 is the one that's sticking out for me right now. And I think that it's an important thing that we need to do in that area down there for 2 reasons. It's needed. Secondly, we do have a commitment. We had an existing one there before. We kind of committed to the community. I know I'm repeating myself, but we did take it off of that project that was going to provide that washroom down there. But I think it's very important that we move forward with that. And I am feeling a little urgency to get that done as well. The tour season's going to come. There's no bathroom facility down there. And I think it's important that we get that done as soon as possible. So I don't know whether we can combine that grant opportunity with this project, but somehow or another we need to move forward with that.
Through the chair to Councillor Rhodes, just to answer your question, if we're unsuccessful in the grant opportunity, there's still a $450,000 washroom we need to put into play and put into the budgets. If that's something that council feels is very appropriate, then I'll have to make sure that line item is put into our capital plan, our 5-year capital plan. And I will put that in for budget discussions.
Yeah, I know we're not making hardcore resolutions and things right now, but just for clarity, and if you want an opinion, that is my particular opinion. So,
Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I look at the budget, and I think we're following our budget or our future is looking at the budget we've allocated for the roads and for the sidewalks in the 221 budget. As this budget reads, and I presume that's kind of in our 5-year budget.
That is correct, Councillor King.
So I
Yep.
mean, as we're looking at what's priority, it has been prioritized already for those sidewalks and roads. So I have no problem supporting this grant application, but within mind, if something falls through the crack, or make sure you at least bring forward that washrooms in your budget, as we're gonna discuss on Wednesday possibly, and we can decide whether we pull it out or we get some funding or leave it in.
So I have one more comment about the washrooms. I don't think we need, there isn't a lot of space down there on the sand. I think we need a washroom similar to what we have at Goodman. I don't think that we need change rooms. If we're going to keep this washroom open all year long, that's probably not. Look at the other one that we have with change rooms. We close it for various reasons, partly because people like to camp in there. So my thinking is that it's a smallish beach. There's not a big area there. I agree washrooms need to go in, but I'd prefer to see something that was a little less expensive and be similar to what we have at Goodman. And there may be reasons that isn't going to work, but that would be what I thought.
No, thank you, Richard. I just want to point out that the design shows the change room being able to be closed in the off-season. So they have separate entrances and exits to the rest of the washroom facility.
Okay.
So the
it
washrooms would be
done.
open 4 seasons, the change rooms would be closed during the winter.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, it's really not that big a beach. So I'm wondering, we've never had change rooms down there before, I don't think. Or did the old washrooms kind of have change rooms as part of that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
They did? I never used them, did you? Okay, well, there's a lot of different issues here, and I just see, obviously, that there's big concerns that all of us have, so, did
I
you,
move option 1.
you're moving option 1, and that would be to move, let me get my glasses on. Move forward with the final design and construction of the road alignment, parking lot improvements, and washroom facility using the funding model outlined in this report. Is there a seconder for that? I will second it so that we can have discussion. Is there any, go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Corda. Just a procedure question. Were you looking for a resolution today? I never got that impression.
Oh,
No, just looking for you guys' input and feedback on the project.
so but you do want us to okay the fact that you're applying for this. Is that what you want today?
So, Your Worship, the grant has already been applied for.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't really have to do anything with it right now?
That is correct, Your Worship, you do not.
Okay. Is that okay? I
That's
mean-
why it was brought to the committee whole for you guys to discuss.
Okay, so you're taking copious notes about all the things that we've asked about?
Thank you.
I think Mrs. Hilson is. Go ahead,
Madam
Councillor.
Mayor, just a question about Councillor King's option 1. Are we saying that you're okaying that we do the $2.8 million current 5-year capital funding? Or are you saying,
Send
we're-
a motion, I think. You guys need a motion.
Yeah,
okay,
we're not going to use the motion. We don't need that, yeah.
okay.
Okay, so anybody else want to put in their 2 bits worth about this this grant that's been applied for?
Or we just defeat the motion. There is a
We-
motion on the floor.
Do we have to deal with the motion on the floor? Okay.
Approval of the mover and the seconder and the consent.
All right, so it was moved and seconded that we go with option 1. I will ask all in favor.
No, are you gonna withdraw it?
Pardon me? Oh, withdraw it instead of going through it?
So-
All right, Councillor
Councillor
King, are you withdrawing the motion? And I was the seconder, I will second that. Is that okay?
And
Sir-
is council in favor?
Do we need to take a vote? That,
Just to make sure.
okay, everybody okay with that? Thank you. Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
And thank you for every time I go by the sewage lift station, I mean, it looks really good now. It's It's got good fencing around it and everything. It's a nice piece, and I remember some of the people that were living around there were worried it was gonna be an eyesore and it was gonna be in their view and everything. It's not. It looks really good. Thank you.
This design though too actually moves quite a bit to the south, so it does open a lot more green space for the beach, yeah.
Just one more
Okay.
question.
Oh, go ahead.
If we go option 3, is that what that's what you're looking for? Is to be able to get this shell ready, then if there's funding come available, then you're ready to move forward on it, right?
So what I'll say, Councillor Bennett, is should we be successful in this $1 million grant program, there will be an additional report coming to council asking us to move forward on what aspect and for how much. This was, again, just an informational piece for council to understand, what's going on in the background, so that we're not surprising you guys down the road with a staff report saying we want to spend $3.4 million. So again, this was so that I understand you guys' wants and needs and understandings, and we can move this project forward in a timely manner should we be successful with the grant
Appreciate it.
application.
Looks really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see anything else on the agenda for this committee of the whole meeting, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor King, Councillor Harvey, all in favor. Thank you very much. So the meeting is adjourned.